I remember that night in a way that doesn't fade. Not because something explosive happened right away, but because of how carefully everything pretended to be perfect. It was one of those early fall evenings in Chicago where the air feels just crisp enough to make the city look sharper. Lights reflecting off glass buildings, traffic humming below, everything alive in that quiet, polished way. We were heading to a rooftop lounge downtown, not our usual kind of place. This was the kind of spot where reservations mattered, where people dressed like they had something to prove, where every table felt like a small stage. Emily had been getting ready for almost 3 hours. At first, I didn't think anything of it. She always liked to look good when we went out. But that night, it was different. More precise. More intentional. I watched her without really meaning to. She tried on one dress, stood in front of the mirror, tilted her head slightly, then shook it off and changed. Then another. Then another. By the third one, I leaned against the doorframe. "Thought you already picked one," I said. "I did," she replied quickly, not looking at me. "Just making sure." "Making sure of what?" I didn't ask. When she finally stepped out, everything about her was flawless. Black dress, simple but sharp. Hair done just enough to look effortless. Makeup clean, precise, not overdone, but deliberate. She looked like someone going somewhere important. "You ready?" she asked, turning toward me with a smile that should have felt familiar. I smiled back automatically. "Yeah. You look incredible." And she did. But something didn't land right. I didn't know why. The ride there was quiet, but not uncomfortable, at least not on the surface. She scrolled through her phone a few times, typing quickly, then locking it the moment I glanced over. Not in a suspicious way, just fast. Controlled. "You texting someone about tonight?" I asked casually. "Just confirming something," she said. "Work stuff." Work. At 8:30 on a Friday night. Again, I didn't push it. I told myself I was overthinking. The moment we stepped out of the elevator onto the rooftop, everything shifted. Soft music. Glass clinking. Low conversations layered over each other. The skyline stretched out behind the railing like it was part of the design. And immediately, we were seen. "Hey! There they are!" Someone waved us over. Then another voice. A handshake. A joke about us being late. A comment about how we cleaned up well. Emily slid into it effortlessly. That's the part that stuck with me. She didn't warm up to the room. She belonged in it instantly. Laughing at the right moments. Making eye contact. Engaging like she'd already been part of the conversation before we even arrived. I stayed half a step behind, catching up. "Man, you two are the definition of a power couple," someone said, raising a glass. Emily laughed, that soft, natural laugh I knew so well. Or at least, thought I did. I smiled, nodded, played my part. But inside, something small shifted. Not loud. Not obvious. Just there. We got seated near the edge of the rooftop, the kind of table people would fight for. Perfect view. City lights stretched out behind Emily like a backdrop. She looked unreal sitting there. Perfect posture. Relaxed but composed. Engaged in conversation with someone across from her. And I realized something strange. She hadn't really looked at me since we sat down. Not properly. Not the way people do when they're with you. "You good?" I asked her at one point, leaning slightly closer so only she could hear. She turned, like she had to pull herself back for a second. "Yeah," she said quickly. "Of course. You seem a little distracted." It was a soft comment. Careful. For just a second, barely noticeable, her expression changed. Then it reset. "I'm fine," she said, reaching for her glass. "Just a long week." A long week. That explanation should have made sense. But it didn't match what I was seeing. Nothing about her felt drained. If anything, she looked more alive than she had in months. The night kept moving. Drinks were refilled. People rotated in and out of conversations. Someone suggested a toast. Someone else ordered another round. And the more everything around me came alive, the more I felt like I was fading out of it. Like I was watching it happen instead of being part of it. Emily leaned forward, listening to someone talk, really listening. Smiling at the right moments. Reacting naturally. I tried to remember the last time she looked at me like that. I couldn't. And that thought didn't hit like anger. It hit like distance. At one point, I stopped trying to follow the conversation entirely. I just watched her. The way her posture shifted slightly depending on who she was talking to. The way her smile changed, subtle, but different. The way her attention moved, and never quite came back to me. That's when the feeling settled in. Not a thought. Not a conclusion. Just something quiet and undeniable. Something had changed. Not in that moment. Not because of anything I could point to. But something had already shifted before we even got there. And I was just now catching up to it. I remember sitting there, glass in my hand, city lights reflecting across the table. And realizing something I couldn't explain yet. I wasn't part of her world in that moment. I was just present in it. Nothing had happened. No argument. No scene. No obvious reason. And still, something was wrong. Deep enough that I could feel it. But not clear enough to understand. And that was the worst part. Because whatever it was, it had already started long before I noticed it. It didn't happen all at once. That's what made it worse. If something obvious had gone wrong, an argument, a look, a moment that clearly crossed a line, I would have known how to react. I would have had something to hold on to. But this was quieter than that. It started with small things. Almost nothing. The kind of details you'd normally ignore because they don't mean anything on their own. Except they do. At some point, I realized I hadn't heard Emily say my name in over an hour. Not once. She was talking, laughing, responding to everyone around the table, but never to me. Not directly. Not intentionally. I was there, sitting right next to her, and somehow not part of anything she was doing. I leaned back slightly, watching her without interrupting. She didn't notice. "Emily, you remember Jason, right?" someone across the table asked. She turned immediately, her expression lighting up. "Of course," she said warmly. "We met at, what was it, last winter?" Jason laughed. "Yeah, that event downtown. You were the one who spilled a drink on yourself," she added, smiling. Everyone laughed. Including me. But I wasn't laughing because it was funny. I was laughing because I realized something. She remembered that moment. But earlier that same week, she forgot a conversation we had about something important, something that actually mattered to us. And that contrast stuck. I tried to shake it off. Told myself it didn't mean anything. But then I started noticing more. The way her body angled slightly away from me instead of toward me. The way she held her glass with both hands when she wasn't speaking, almost like she needed something to focus on. The way her attention seemed to drift, not randomly, but intentionally. Like she was waiting for something. Or someone. "You sure you're good?" I asked again, quieter this time. She didn't respond right away. For a split second, I thought she didn't hear me. Then she turned. "Yeah," she said a little too quickly. "Why do you keep asking that?" There was a subtle edge in her tone. Not sharp enough to call out. But enough to make me stop asking. "Just checking," I said, leaning back again. She nodded, already looking past me. Not at me. Past me. That was the moment something in my chest tightened. Because it wasn't just distraction anymore. It was direction. I followed her gaze without making it obvious. At first, I didn't see anything unusual. People moving around. Waiters passing by. Groups shifting positions. Normal. Then I noticed it. Not who she was looking at, but how she was looking. It was subtle. Controlled. But focused. Her eyes didn't wander. They locked. For just a second. Then she looked away. Like nothing happened. I felt it immediately. That quiet signal in your gut that doesn't come with proof, just certainty. Something wasn't right. A few minutes passed. Conversation moved again. Someone ordered another round. And then, her phone buzzed. It wasn't loud. But I saw it. And more importantly, I saw her reaction. Her entire expression changed. Not dramatically, but enough. Her posture straightened slightly. Her shoulders relaxed. That same soft, natural smile appeared again, the one I noticed earlier. The one that didn't feel like it was meant for me. She picked up her phone. Didn't hide it. Didn't turn away. Just glanced down. Read the message. And smiled. Not politely. Not casually. Personally. I felt something drop in my chest. Slow. Heavy. Like a realization forming before the thought could catch up. You okay? I asked, watching her. She didn't even look at me. I'll be right back, she said. Just like that. No explanation. No eye contact. Nothing. She stood up smoothly, already typing something as she moved. And walked away from the table. I sat there for a second. Waiting. Expecting her to turn back. Say something. A glance. A signal. Anything. She didn't. Conversation continued around me like nothing changed. Someone asked me something. I don't even remember what. I nodded. Gave a short answer. But my attention wasn't there anymore. It was on her. Or more specifically, on the fact that she wasn't coming back. 5 minutes passed. Then 10. That was quick. Someone joked lightly, noticing her absence. Probably a call, another added. I nodded again. Played along. But something inside me had already shifted from uncertainty to awareness. I stood up. Calmly. Not rushing. Not making it obvious. Gonna grab some air, I said. No one questioned it. As I walked toward the stairs leading down from the rooftop, I could feel it building. That quiet pressure in your chest when something clicks into place. But you're not ready to accept what it means yet. Halfway down, I saw her. Near the entrance. And she wasn't alone. She was standing close to a man I'd never seen before. Close enough that it didn't look like a coincidence. Or a first conversation. It looked familiar. He said something. She laughed. Not the polite laugh from the table. The real one. The same one from earlier. And then he reached for her hand. And she didn't pull away. That's when everything inside me went quiet. Not loud. Not explosive. Just still. Because in that moment, I wasn't guessing anymore. I was watching the truth play out right in front of me. I didn't move right away. That's the part that stayed with me later, not what I saw, but how still I became when I saw it. Like my body understood something before my mind was ready to accept it. I stood there on the stairs, one hand resting lightly on the railing, just far enough away that they couldn't see me, but close enough that I didn't miss anything. Every detail felt sharper than it should have been. The way she leaned slightly toward him. The way he didn't hesitate. The way either of them looked around to check who might be watching. That's when it hit me. This wasn't new. Not for them. If it was, there would have been hesitation. Distance. That awkward space people keep when they're not sure what's allowed yet. There was none of that. What I was looking at wasn't a moment. It was something already in motion. He said something again. I couldn't hear the words, but I saw the reaction. Emily smiled. Not the social smile she gave at the table. Not the polite one. This one was softer. Warmer. Unfiltered. And then he reached for her hand again. This time, slower. More deliberate. She let him. Not just that. She stepped closer. That small movement, barely noticeable to anyone else, was the moment everything inside me locked into place. Because that wasn't confusion. That wasn't hesitation. That was choice. I felt something break. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just clean. Like a line being drawn that couldn't be undone. I could have walked up to them. I thought about it for a second. Not out of anger. Out of instinct. That reflex people have when something is taken from them, and they want to grab it back. But I didn't. Because even in that moment, I understood something. If I had to pull her away, then I had already lost her. So I stayed where I was. And I watched. He pulled out his phone. Said something, showing her the screen. She leaned in closer to look. Too close. Their shoulders touching now. Like that distance between them didn't exist anymore. And then, his phone rang. I saw the screen light up. He glanced at it. Then held it slightly toward her. Like it mattered. Emily didn't hesitate. Not even for a second. She took the call. Right there. Standing next to him. I felt it physically. That moment. Like something pressing down on my chest, not sharp, not explosive, just heavy. Final. Because I knew exactly what that meant. She wasn't just distracted anymore. She wasn't just distant. She was choosing him. Openly. Without even thinking about it. And I was still upstairs. At a table. In a life that no longer included me. The call didn't last long. Maybe 30 seconds. Maybe less. But it didn't matter. Time stopped meaning anything the second she answered it. When she hung up, she didn't rush back. Didn't look toward the stairs. Didn't check if I was coming. Instead, they both moved. Together. Toward the side exit. That's when everything became undeniable. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It wasn't a bad moment. It wasn't something that just happened. This had been happening. For a while. I finally moved. Not toward them. Not fast. Just forward. Down the rest of the stairs. By the time I reached the bottom, they were already at the door. He held it open. She walked out. Like it was normal. Like it was planned. And just like that, she was gone. No message. No explanation. No glance back. Nothing. I stood there for a few seconds, staring at the door like something might change if I waited long enough. It didn't. Everything inside me felt quiet. Too quiet. Not anger. Not yet. Just clarity. The kind that settles in slowly. And leaves no room for doubt. I didn't go after them. I didn't call her name. I didn't check my phone. Because deep down, I already knew. Whatever I thought we had ended long before that night. I just happened to be the last one to realize it. I walked back upstairs. Same table. Same people. Same noise. But everything felt different. Distant. Muted. Like I was already somewhere else. Hey, where'd you go? Someone asked. Just needed some air, I said. Where's Emily? That question hung there for a second. I looked at the empty chair next to me. Then back at them. She left, I said calmly. No one questioned it. No one pushed. And for the first time that night, I didn't feel out of place anymore. I felt separate. Completely. I didn't stay much longer. Not because I couldn't. Because there was nothing left for me there. I finished my drink slowly, not really tasting it. Conversations kept moving around me, people laughing, glasses clinking, music blending into the background like nothing had changed. But for me, everything had. At some point, someone tried to pull me into another conversation. Work. Deals. Something about next quarter. I nodded in the right places. Said a few words when needed. But I wasn't there anymore. Not really. Because in the back of my mind, something had already started. Not anger. Not pain. Something colder. Understanding. I left without making a scene. No goodbyes. No explanations. Just grabbed my coat and walked out the same way she did. Through that side exit. The air outside felt different. Sharper. Quieter. Like the city didn't care what just happened. I stood there for a moment, looking down the street. Half expecting to see them. I didn't. Of course I didn't. People who move like that don't stay close. I got into my car and sat there for a while. Engine off. Hands resting on the steering wheel. And for the first time that night, my thoughts started catching up. Not all at once. Piece by piece. The late nights. The work stuff. The way she'd been distant without being obvious about it. The way conversations felt shorter. The way she stopped asking questions. Stopped checking in. Stopped being there. It all lined up. Clean. Too clean. And the worst part? There wasn't a single moment I could point to and say, that's when it started. Because it didn't start in one moment. It built. Quietly. While I was still living like nothing had changed. I drove home on autopilot. Didn't turn on music. Didn't check my phone. Didn't rush. Just drove. The house was exactly how we left it. Lights off. Still. Familiar. I walked in, set my keys down, and stood there in the silence. That's when it hit a little differently. Not louder. Just deeper. Because this place still looked like us. But it wasn't anymore. I didn't call her. Didn't text. Didn't ask where she was. Because I already knew enough. Instead, I sat down, opened the drawer near the living room shelf, and pulled out the old tablet we barely used anymore. I don't even know why I did it. Not exactly. Maybe instinct. Maybe something in me already understood what I was about to find. It took a second to power on. Screen lighting up slowly. Notifications syncing. And then, messages. A lot of them. Same contact. Over and over. No name. Just a number. But the timestamps told the story immediately. Late nights. Early mornings. Gaps in between that matched the time she said she was busy. I opened one. Then another. And just like that, everything became undeniable. The tone. The familiarity. The kind of conversations people don't build overnight. This wasn't new. Not even close. Weeks. Maybe months. Conversations about meeting. Jokes that only make sense when there's history behind them. Photos. Not explicit. But personal enough. Intentional enough. I felt my jaw tighten slightly. Not from shock. From confirmation. Because deep down, I already knew. This just removed the last piece of doubt. There it was. Laid out clean. Without emotion. Without excuses. Proof. I leaned back slightly, staring at the screen. Reading without reacting. And that's when something shifted again. Not pain. Not even anger. Control. Because everything finally made sense. And once something makes sense, you stop questioning it. You start acting on it. I didn't scroll endlessly. Didn't torture myself with every message. I saw enough. More than enough. I closed the tablet. Set it down carefully. And sat there in the quiet. No noise. No distractions. Just one clear realization. This wasn't something that just happened tonight. Tonight was just the moment it stopped being hidden. And that difference changed everything. I stood up. Walked to the window. Looked out at the street. Same city. Same life. Same everything. Except now. I could see it clearly. She didn't make a mistake. She made a series of choices. And tonight, she made one more. The final one. And for the first time since all of this started, I wasn't confused anymore. I wasn't guessing. I knew exactly what I was dealing with. And more importantly, I knew exactly what I was going to do next. I didn't sleep that night. Not even close. I stayed in the living room, lights off, the city barely leaking through the windows. Time passed, but it didn't feel like it was moving forward. It just stretched. Every now and then, my phone would light up. Her name. Over and over. First a message. "Where are you?" Then another. "Did you leave?" Then a call. I watched it ring. Didn't touch it. A few minutes later. "Hey. I had to step out, I'll explain when I get back." Explain. That word meant nothing anymore. I turned the phone face down. Silence came back. Because at that point, I wasn't waiting for answers. I already had them. What I didn't have yet was the full picture. And something told me there was more. Not a feeling. Not paranoia. Just pattern. People don't build something like that overnight. And they don't risk it like that unless it's already deep. So I went back to the tablet. Turned it on again. Opened the messages. This time, I wasn't reading emotionally. I was reading carefully. Looking for details. Connections. Anything that gave context. Names came up occasionally. Not directly. But enough. References to meetings. To places. To timing. And then. An address. It wasn't labeled clearly. Just dropped into conversation like it was already understood. Same place as last time. Come by after. Door will be open. I stared at it for a second. Something about it felt familiar. Not immediately. But close enough that my brain kept trying to place it. I grabbed my phone. Typed it in. And the moment the location loaded, everything inside me went still again. Because I knew exactly what it was. I'd been there before. More than once. Not as a guest. Not casually. As a partner. Daniel's place? I actually laughed. Not loud. Not emotional. Just a short breath of disbelief. Because out of all the possibilities, out of all the people, it was him. Daniel wasn't just someone I knew. He was someone I trusted. We built things together. Deals. Projects. Risks. We'd spent hours talking strategy, planning moves, figuring out how to grow. I'd been in that apartment late at night, sitting across from him, discussing numbers, ideas, next steps. And all that time, this was happening. Behind that same door. I leaned back slowly, letting that settle. Because this wasn't just betrayal anymore. This was layered. Calculated. It meant they didn't just cross a line. They built something behind it. While standing right in front of me. Every handshake. Every conversation. Every, "Brother, I got you." All of it meant nothing. Or worse. It meant something completely different. I stood up. Didn't hesitate. Didn't overthink. Grabbed my keys. And left. The drive there was quiet. Again. No music. No distractions. Just a straight line from what I knew to what I was about to confirm. The city looked different at that hour. Less noise. Less movement. More honest. I pulled up outside his building. Parked across the street. Sat there for a second. Not because I was unsure. But because I already knew what I'd see. Still, I needed to see it. I got out. Walked to the entrance. Same door. Same code. I didn't rush. Didn't sneak. Didn't try to hide. I walked in like I belonged there. Because at one point, I did. The hallway was quiet. Lights dim. Same as always. I reached his door. And for the first time that night, I paused. Not from fear. Not from doubt. From clarity. Because once that door opened, there would be no version of this left to question. I knocked. Once. A few seconds passed. Movement inside. Then the door opened. Daniel stood there. And the moment he saw me, Everything on his face changed. Not confusion. Not surprise. Recognition. Like he knew exactly why I was there. And behind him, I saw her. Emily. Standing in the same space I'd been in dozens of times before. For a second. No one said anything. No excuses. No explanations. No panic. Just silence. Because the truth didn't need words anymore. It was already in the room. I looked at him. Then at her. And in that moment, I understood something completely. I wasn't walking in on a mistake. I was walking in on something that had already replaced me. And they both knew it. That's why either of them spoke. Because there was nothing left to defend. I nodded slightly. Not to them. To myself. Then I turned around. And walked away. No shouting. No confrontation. No scene. Because I didn't need one. Everything I needed was already clear. And from that moment on, this wasn't about finding the truth anymore. It was about what I was going to do with it. I didn't go home angry. I went home focused. By the time the sun came up, everything was already in motion. Joint accounts, locked. Access, revoked. Shared cards, disabled. I moved through it like it was business, not personal. Clean. Precise. Final. She started calling around 7 a.m. Then texting. Then calling again. At first, it was confusion. Then panic. Mark, what's going on? Why aren't my cards working? Please answer me. I didn't. By noon, the divorce papers were filed. No delay. No hesitation. For the first time in months, I wasn't reacting. I was deciding. And the more her messages piled up, the quieter everything inside me became. It didn't take long for everything to fall apart for them. Once it wasn't hidden anymore, whatever they had lost its shape fast. Daniel disappeared first, no calls, no explanations. Just gone. Emily tried to reach me for weeks. Messages turned from urgency, to regret, to silence. But I never answered. The divorce went through clean. No drama. No second chances. A few months later, I left Chicago. New city. New work. New people who didn't know my past. And for the first time in a long time, life felt quiet. Not empty. Clear. No lies. No guessing. No second-guessing myself. Just space to rebuild something real. And that was the difference. Because in the end, it wasn't about losing them. It was about getting myself back.